Okay, so welcome to episode 3 of season 1 of Speak Easy with Haroon, where I basically sit and have a long chat with artists, creatives, and troublemakers. Which one are you, Tom?
I think I fall under all three of those. I don't know.
You know what? It's interesting because you're the second interviewee in a row, and the second one this week was like, yeah, I think I'm a bit of all of the above.
I think maybe the connotations of troublemaker. I think good troublemaker,
Good troublemaker. Okay,
positive
using
troublemaker.
your superpowers for good, not bad.
Yeah, for
Um,
sure.
let's get some context. So, firstly, Tom, like, how do you like to be referred to? Because I knew you from school as Tom Hall. Uh,
So
I've seen
just
you as
Tom.
a
If we're
creative.
just chatting right now, like all my friends call me Tom. But
Tom.
if we're online and you're looking for me, it's Tomall. Only because
And,
the
why did you get rid of the H?
because I've got a boring name that has no up and down flows to it. It's just
Mhm.
Tom Hall, and I was like trying to make it a little bit more interesting by pushing them together and creating something new. It's
Well,
confused a lot of people because they're like, "Where are you from? Iceland?" And I'm like,
well, it's worked because I couldn't leave the topic alone, and we barely
"Yeah,
got into intros. So, look, Tom, you and I have a background. You know, we went to school together. We crossed paths through the hip hop community between London and the South Coast. And I actually really saw this interview as a chance to tell a different story because I think, from what I can glean online, you've had quite an interesting journey. But at the same time, even as someone who has known you on and off over the last couple of decades, and I think we're becoming friends again,
mhm,
um, beyond knowing that you are a designer, I have no idea what that means. I'm going to basically completely own my ignorance in terms of art and visual stuff like that, and that part of your creative practice. So if you want to give us a quick intro, 30 to 60 seconds, just elevator pitch who you are, what you do, and yeah, why people should listen.
okay." So I guess my blanket title would be a creative. Meaning I can adapt to many different mediums and many different disciplines, and still have what I hope would be some sort of impact. I currently, if you're looking at my LinkedIn, I'm a lead designer at I Love Dust, and what that entails is mainly art directing, artistic input and creative direction for brands such as Nike, Jordan, Dapper Labs, Hulu. The list goes on. We're quite lucky in the sense of the clients we get to work with.
Brilliant. So yeah, you seem to have racked up a few brands and brand names on your CV then.
Yeah, a few,
Okay,
a few. Yeah, humble brag.
not a problem. So look, I'm really big on origin stories for like creatives
Mhm.
because my hope is that that creative is probably shut off in his bedroom somewhere, uh, somewhere here in the UK or even somewhere else in the world. They're trying to figure out how they can get further and how they can sort of craft and navigate their journey as a creative. And the only way that can happen is to find out where it all started for yourself.
Wow. So
So
how far do we go back here?
it's up to you. I mean,
Okay.
look,
Well.
I'm not gonna give it all away, but I know that you've been involved in other creative art forms prior to being a designer at I Love Dust.
Yep.
It would be lovely to hear about your journey. Some of the things you did that did or didn't work out, how you got to where you are. Because
Yep.
I think
Okay.
creative path isn't linear, and I think it's really important for people who are listening to sort of take heart from your journey and take those lessons and probably shorten the learning curve for themselves, or at least understand that maybe the thing that they think they love may not work out, and then it leads to this and this, and they can end up in a really awesome space like what you are right now. Working for some of the best brands in the world, Nike, Hulu, and so forth.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it all really starts with, I guess, as a kid, just being like super obsessed over comic books and cartoon characters, and being so obsessed that you want to be a part of it, to the point where you're illustrating everything, you're copying what you see, and you're just developing yourself by, tracing Wolverine or tracing like the Ninja Turtles, and just pretty much that provided a platform for me as a kid. Moving on, it was, doing art in school, obviously applying your talents there, and just, sort of really getting involved. And I think you look at where I landed at school, art and sport were the only things I was actually good at and kind of left with a decent grade. I'm cutting this quite short, just jumping through, but then getting to college, and you're learning to adapt to what's happening in the market at the moment. So you're inviting tools like Photoshop and Illustrator into your life, and seeing how your artwork adapts to that. My first realization that I was going to be a graphic designer was when I actually was in a media studies course, and we were doing a project which turned four students in our class into like a boy band, and we had to come up with all of the kind of creative for it. And so I was, kind of got into Photoshop there. I was like cutting everybody out, adjusting, and adding little bits of typography and illustration, and really sort of like seeing all of the work that I'd put in before as an artist, or as a kid, scribbling and drawing things I love into an actual like direction. From there, I was on to Portsmouth University, and
So
anybody that
which university did you go to?
I went to Portsmouth.
Oh wow, yeah. So that's crazy, because we've known each other on and off for about 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
I had no idea that you went to Portsmouth University for your undergrad. I went there as well.
Yeah, and I think that was a massive eye opener, because it's just obviously you're learning more and developing your craft. I during my time at university, I met my girlfriend, who became my wife, who's Canadian. So it was having her in my life kind of made me realize I need to focus on my pathway, because I think right about then I was involved, as you mentioned, I was involved in so many different things, from like music to sport to design. I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. I was kind of like not, necessarily honed in on graphic design, even though like that was what I was studying. I kind of thought, like, in the back of my mind, oh, I might be a rapper, or I might play basketball. Which now looks back on it, I'm like laughable, but at the time I was like, I'm very serious.
Not necessarily. I don't think it's laughable. It's just you
Like seeing how it progressed.
You have forks in the road. It's easy with hindsight.
Mm-hmm, for sure. And I definitely think that in order for us to stay together, I had to focus my talents on like a craft that's going to pay me, and graphic design became that. I ended up moving to Canada for 8 months, like hounded studios. I was hounding like Rockstar Games had a studio out in Vancouver, and EA Games was out in Vancouver too. So I was like working, trying to like see if I could get with those guys, but obviously getting shut down. Coming back, and I was kind of deflated, like very sort of like I didn't think graphic design or illustration was something that could happen for me. I was looking at other people out in the in the space, and just seeing how well they were doing, and just kind of feeling like I'm not that good, so maybe I should look at doing something else. I ended up doing all of the crappy jobs, and I when I say crappy jobs, I mean like I was signing up to a deco and getting like agency work, and I told them that I wanted to do graphic design, which to them meant anything with a computer I could do, which like blows the doors wide open. And I had some crazy jobs, like I became the guy that if you phone me up and asked me to do something, I'd probably do it on the day, because I needed the money. And say, like, just to give you an example, one of my jobs was, and it was probably the craziest, the girl phones me up in the morning, she's like, you you're the graphic designer, right? And I'm like, yeah, thinking, oh, got a break here. Okay, well, we've got one at its job, and it involves using computers. So, you know, I think it's a graphic design job. And I'm like, okay, you know, obviously at the beginning it sounds very ambiguous, but I need the money, so I'm okay. I head up to this place. I've got I walk into a room, people in there, no one looks at me. Everyone's got their heads down. So I'm like, okay, the vibe in here is very, very real. It's very cold. I sit down at a desk. A geezer comes up to me. He's like, okay, so what I need you to do is fill out this spreadsheet on the computer. So you've got a spreadsheet here, everything that's wrote down. I just need you to put it in a spreadsheet on the computer. And also,
Data
every now
entry.
and then, yeah. So a data entry, yeah, completely. And he said, and also every now and then the phone's going to ring, and you need to tell people that the Wine and Jazz Festival is cancelled this year, and tickets will be refunded. So I'm sitting there typing in all this data and this random data into this spreadsheet, and I'm getting phone calls, angry people like mad about the Wine and Jazz Festival, and I've just got to break it to them that it's not working out. And so, you know, I've worked some terrible jobs. I got my first break with a company called Chromark, and that was designing like embroidered patches and things of that nature. Like, it wasn't the most creative, but it was like, you know, plumbers that wanted a type on their jackets or a logo on their jackets, and we'd always try and push the most extravagant logos, but at the end of the day they just wanted their name as basic as anything. I remember this, I'd always known who I Love Dust are, and I'd always admired them and always known that, you know, they were the top dogs. And I remember, you know, me and the other graphic designer who was also from Portsmouth there, we'd sit there and we'd be like, oh, they're the top boys, you know, we're nowhere near as good as that. We'd never make it there. And that kind of was the beginning of the spark for me, because I didn't really have a big focus, like, or something that I was honed in on. And from that moment, I was like, well, if I can make it there, then I know I can, you know, I could be considered one of the top dogs. I could be considered one of the graphic designer that I want to be. So my journey continued there. I was at this embroidery place for probably at least 5 years, but also trying to develop on the side. I'd end up copying like lots of work that I see out there, trying to like refine skills and, you know, develop that way. I end up getting a job offer from job site, but at the same time I was applying to I Love Dust all the time, like, they, to the point where they probably got sick of me. Like, it was a different application every time. So I remember while I was still at the first bit that got me on the radar with I Love Dust was I figured my work wasn't, you know, up there with the caliber of people they were hiring. So I'd have to do something a little bit more extreme. So I figured, you know, my situation, how I was, I felt a bit stranded. So my application turned out to be a message in a bottle, meaning that I branded this bottle. I, you know, made a big cover note that made it look like I'm help, stranded in a dead end job. You need to help me, and like all in nice typography.
Is this the one that landed you the gig?
This is the one that got me well on the radar.
I should hope so.
Yeah. So, and I did the whole thing, like got the bottle together, put it in, made a box, illustrated on the side of the box, and sent it in. And, you know, the boss there, you know, loved the idea. He was like, this, you know, it's this kind of thinking we want. We get so many like 300 meg PDFs of just people's work, and no one's trying to like break the mold at all. My obviously them being on you know, their radar, I'm constantly trying to like keep up with my side hustle and being more conscious of my style I'm developing, and things like that. I'm working at job site. It's still not the gig that I'm after. I want more creativity. This was, you know, kind of not that. I was still within the guidelines of job site, and I get an interview with I Love Dust. So I go in, speak to them, get on really well with everyone. You know, everyone's amazing. And unfortunately, they hit some hard times and don't end up hiring anyone. So I'm kind of on the sidelines again. Like, damn. So continuing working at a job site, I noticed they start posting for a senior designer, and I'm thinking, well, I'm not that, but maybe I should just, you know, send him a message, let him know I'm still interested. I send a message. He's exactly, you know, oh yeah, no, we were just thinking about you. Come down and let's talk. Cut a long story short, I speak to them. There's another guy who they're hiring, and I remember like right before, I think it was the weekend before my second interview with them, I made a brand new PDF. I made a brand new portfolio that had everything that I thought they'd want in it. Like, I didn't know 3D, but I just grabbed the logo that I'd made in Illustrator, you know, extruded it in 3D, just beveled it a little bit, made it look shiny, and just put it in my portfolio. I saw that they had hand-drawn type, so I put hand-drawn type in there. I saw they had illustration, so I put a little bit of illustration in there. I saw that they liked branding, they clean branding, so I made sure I just ticked every box, and that it was, you know, there was no way they could say I wasn't, you know, the caliber, or, you know, did things that they were asking for. Ended up going for this job interview. As I said, there was another guy, and this is just when like the 3D wave is kicking off, and there's lots of companies and people wanting to use 3D in their ad campaigns, and they decide to go with the other guy. So again, I'm left at the sideline.
My anxiety levels are going through the roof right now.
So I'm legit just, what have I got to do? Like, and I'm thinking I've got to learn 3D because this is what everybody's doing. And, you know, I'm defeated, heartbroken. So, and, you know, as I said, I put this as my focus. And when I put something as my focus, it's all I think about. I obsess about it. Like, to the points where I remember having dreams that I worked there, and then I wake up and I'd be like, oh, I don't work there.
Yes.
Yeah, you know, and it was everything that was just fuel on the fire. And 2 weeks, maybe not even that, I get a message from the boss, Mark, and he's like, you know, come meet me for a drink. So I'm like, okay, I go meet him for a drink. He said, look, I really like you. I think, you know, you're definitely worth a punt. But, you know, here's the thing, we can't like fully hire you. You'd have to come in as like a 4-month probation type thing, and then we can decide if we can keep you or not. I'm like, okay. So now I'm stuck. I'm like, do I give up everything that I'm doing right now? Because job site was good money, you know, I was secure, I was, you know, easily doing good work there. Or do I give it up and go for my dream, which is I Love Dust, working for Jordan, working for Nike? And I'm messaging back. I was like, it's a no-brainer for me. You know, I definitely proved myself in those 4 months. I'll make sure, you know, that I'm going to hit everything you want. And he's like, yeah, cool. I get within my first month there, and he offers me a job. So I end up getting a designer job straight away, just by, you know, I think just by, you know, hustle. And I was, you know, anything they wanted, I was ready to do, you know, stay late, even, you know, even obsessing about what I did during the day. I'd take it home, like, you know, this could be better. Everything I'm doing here could be better. You know, looking at other designers that are in the studio and just, you know, kind of comparing myself, which, you know, isn't the healthiest thing, but just looking at where I'm falling short and where they're kind of hitting the mark, which was, you know, and like I say, the rest is history.
It is. And when was it that I Love Dust finally gave you that shot? And they finally saw you?
That was 2013.
Wow.
So that's September 2013. So I started there as a designer, and now I'm a lead designer.
So this is interesting. This is now 8 years.
8 years, yeah,
approximately.
Mm-hmm.
That level of perseverance it's something else. And I think people who are listening, potentially other artists and creatives who are, you know, working their way up and on their journey, there's a lot they can take away from that in terms of, you know, the importance of persistence and resilience. Was there ever a time where you thought, you know what, I'm going to pack this in, it's not worth it? Was there ever a time where the knockbacks hurt so much that you actually thought, you know what, this is the last? And I'm also curious, you know, did you have a supportive partner, and what difference does that make in following your dreams, to have someone, you know, that level of proximity and intimacy in your personal life?
It was well, I mean, it's everything. To speak on the knockbacks, first of all, I think there was a numerous amount of times where I just thought, you know, I'm just not cut out for this. I should just go work, you know, a regular 9 to 5, and then, you know, keep design and illustration as my hobby, because this, you know, getting to this close and then being knocked back is just heartbreaking. And I don't know how much more I could do it, but I think, you know, in retrospect, I needed to have my heart broken in order to get where I'm at. I needed to know, you know, what the flip side was of not having this job, of kind of like, you know, because I had jobs where I was working part-time at B&Q as well. And I remember just thinking, like, you know, it's either this or that's what you go back to. And I was like, I can't do that. That can't happen. So yeah, and to speak on my partner, who's Kaylee, you can find her online at Kaylee Ill. She is an amazing artist. She's backed me the whole way. Like, I think being with her is what made me step my game up, because she's so good at what she does. She's naturally so good at what she does. And, you know, whatever I was working on, because it was every evening I was trying to work on something. I was trying to like progress. And, you know, obviously she's my sounding board. So she's seen me the best times and the worst times. She's seen me defeated and grumbled, but she's also seen me, you know, on top, and, you know, really applying what my art, so to speak. Yeah, I think I hit everything you asked.
Right,
Yeah,
that's,
you
that's
know,
great. But how long was that process of setting your sights on I Love Dust and finally landing that gig? Like, what was that? Was that a year? Was that 3?
well, oh man. So I remember I Love Dust. I remember Mark, the owner, coming and speaking to us when we were in university, and I remember just how much of a kind of impact that had. I remember the next day, everyone was
We're
trying to
talking, we're
copy
talking the mid 2000s, then, aren't we?
So yeah, I knew who they were back then, you know, when they first started off, because, you know, they're the local guys that were doing stuff for Jordan and Nike, and you don't see that outside of London. Like, you don't see like
Whereabouts are the offices located?
we're currently in Portsmouth and Southsea, and we've got a studio in Brighton. We did have one in Portland, Oregon, but we shut that one down.
Okay.
So go back to your question. So, you know, so that's early 2000s. I knew who they were, and that's when they first started out. So they've been going since 2002. Maybe this was about 2003, 2004 when they were coming in to speak to us. You know, so obviously it's been a thing in the back of my mind, and then I think working the embroidery job and just being kind of like, you know, this isn't what I want to do. This is kind of defeating, and having, you know, another designer there who felt exactly the same as me. You know, we kind of saw I Love Dust as like the out. You know, that was, if you want to make it in this game, that's the top level, and if you make it to that, then, you know, you're there.
And so, look, 8 years on, you're still with I Love Dust, and it doesn't look like you're going to be moving on, leaving anytime soon. What is it that has kept you there for 8 years, and what is it about I Love Dust and the ethos of the company that just makes you want to continue to stay? And talk to us a little bit more, because you've mentioned the brand names that they work on. It would be great to know a little bit more about the campaigns, or just some of the work that you've been involved with that you're proud of. So
yeah, for sure. I think, you know, to speak on what it's like to be a part of I Love Dust, you know, we always say it's like a big dysfunctional family. You know, and that's exactly what it's like. you're not just an employee there, you're part of a crew, and you definitely feel that. And even to speak on, Mark, my boss, the owner, the creative director, he's in the trenches with us. He's not somewhere else, living the high life, and that he's owns the company, and you'll see him work, helping us out, or giving ideas on different jobs, running jobs, everything. He's still very much a part of it, which makes it more personal, should I say, or makes it more cohesive with all of us. I think to speak on things that I'm very proud of is working with Brand Jordan, because anybody that knows me knows that Michael Jordan is my idol.
Mhm.
Michael Jordan is who I grew up watching, and was like, obviously being obsessed with basketball and the culture of sneakers. To get to work on campaigns which utilize that or are for Jordan I can't even describe it. Like, I was the kid that was watching Michael Jordan DVDs before I'd go to school in the morning. I wanted to get in that mind state of how sort of focused Michael Jordan was, and I was thinking, like, I've got to watch this DVD, and then at lunchtime when I play on the courts, I'm going to do that move. So to actually end up running Jordan and being I guess I'm the number one person to run the Jordan campaigns at I Love Dust. To have that is, like I said, words can't describe. We've done things from the All-Star Weekend branding and just the overall look and feel, the VC illustration work. It's such a long list. Recently we've worked for the Air Jordan 35 and did the campaign behind that. We worked on We worked with Nike as well on the latest on the LeBron 18. There's been loads of different projects, and ones that really sort of speak to me on a personal level and not just professional.
Okay, great. I think one of the things that definitely becomes clear to me the more that we talk is even the things that you've left behind.
Mm.
Well, okay, left behind is probably the wrong phrase, but certain things you didn't pursue. Like you said that you obviously pared things down. You took music and rapping out of the equation. You took wanting to play sports and you focus on this. Yet what I find interesting is even with what you're doing in graphic design and the campaigns you work on for I Love Dust, it still draws on that rich passion for sports. So can you talk a bit more about how that has influenced you? Even if you're not pursuing it at that level of wanting to, say, be a player, how has basketball and your love for sports in general, how has that influenced how you've gone about your career as an artist and a designer?
I feel like when you say you say, oh, it's basketball, like there's a lot that comes with basketball. And
no, I'm asking because I know it's a subculture and there's a lot to do with it. I just don't know what it is. I'm very much an outsider.
So
I can't see half the things. I don't own those special goggles that you do that make all the magic visible.
The special goggles. Yeah. Okay. So I mean, like, what I was going to say is, like, basketball comes with hip hop culture. It's something that Black culture is something that I've been inspired by from a young age. So when I take things like basketball, it's just not just the sport that comes with it, it's the culture of sneakers, it's the music that goes with it, it's the players, their lifestyles, it's everything all in one. So it's just such a rich culture to kind of be a platform to create from, because there's so much you can do with it.
And then that touches on music. Like, what influence has music, particularly hip hop, had on you in terms of, again, the choices that you've made, either in pursuing the company that you've pursued, I Love Dust, or even in the way that you go about sort of working? Do you feel like in some sense you're still taking that hip hop energy, and instead of funneling it through, say, MCing and beats and performing, are you still drawing on those same things but just putting it through the different filter, which is your design?
I definitely think so. I think it's like it's more of an attitude that comes with it, like a more of a no holds barred, anything goes, be yourself and express yourself kind of mentality.
And that's what hip hop is to you. Be
Yeah,
yourself.
definitely. It's a freedom. It's a freedom to be, yourself, and against all odds, rise to the top. Because you look at what hip hop was and how it's kind of shunned and pushed out of the way, especially for us as English kids, and we weren't in the major city, and I could kind of remember how hard it was to get hold of hip hop back in the day. It was like if you wanted to be into hip hop, you had to fully invest yourself. You had to, know the guy that had the CD, had the Snoop Dogg CD, so you could dub it and get a copy. You had to work to be into hip hop. To kind of speak on that, I remember hip hop in HMV in Southampton didn't even have its own section. It was mixed in with the rock section, which is probably crazy to people now. But it wasn't until like Tupac and Biggie were killed that it started to have its own section. I mean, this is it.
But this is interesting because I didn't live in the UK during that time. My mum sort of pulled me out of school, took me to Pakistan during the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
And so I remember when I came back, by then in 1998, I knew that I could basically go on a Monday morning to HMV and the latest hip hop releases would be there. And a lot of historical ones. A good chunk of like Outkast's back catalogue before Stankonia dropped was all stuff that I picked up off of the racks in HMV Commercial Road, Portsmouth.
Yeah, and that's it. I mean, like 98 was such a good time for hip hop because it was kind of like
Truth by Gangstar. What other things
oh
were you in 98?
Yeah, don't even. It's so many good tracks. I mean, even how like Def Jam were operating, they had DMX, Def Squad and Redman, and LL Cool J was coming back with absolute fire, and it was just a good time. I remember just like every weekend it was a trip to like go to HMV in Southampton because that's where the good stuff was for me. And
Southampton had a much better HMV.
It did.
Couldn't find Portsmouth, but
yeah,
for whatever reason, I never found myself heading to Southampton.
Yeah, we just thought we hit a gold mine. So me and my mate who shared the same interest was we'd bunk in the train to go up there and try and get some CDs and everything like that, like get the latest releases. DMX, that's what it was all about.
Rest in peace.
Yeah, rest in peace, DMX. Oh, heavy.
Definitely, I wasn't as into it, but he was definitely the soundtrack for a lot of my friends and people I went to college with in the 90s.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, massively.
So when you work, do you normally have music on when you're trying to create something and work on a campaign?
Definitely, and like the where I was going with it is that that is the music that is played throughout the studio. Like if the speakers are on, like 90% of the time it's hip hop, and that stems from like the old stuff, like stuff from the 80s, the things that me and you would listen to up until like the what the guys are doing with sort of like trap music and grime and all the offshoots from there. Like what it's developed into is played. It's always a common thread throughout the whole studio, and it definitely comes from all of us older heads, and definitely the creative director is a hip hop head. It's always apparent with how we work and how we approach things.
And you mentioned something which I found really heartening, which was you were talking about all these different strands, whether it's basketball or whether it's sneaker culture or whether it's the music, and you talked about how black culture was a big thing for you.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I definitely share that. Like even if I spent 10 lifetimes trying to repay the debt of like what I owe to black culture, how it's influenced me personally as a writer, and it's a big part of how I'm here doing this podcast.
Yeah,
it's huge. Talk to me a little bit more about, because we both grew up outside of a major city, and we were both, I'd say, we're non-black people, really loving and wanting to be a part of Black culture. Talk to me a little bit about what that was like growing up outside of a major city centre, where, especially in the 90s, there'd be a bunch of kids who'd be into other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then to be the person
Yeah,
who's like, no, this is what's great.
yeah,
What was that
yeah.
like? Because I remember being in Pakistan, where you used to have Pakistani kids of American kids of Pakistani origin,
Mm-hmm.
and British kids of Pakistani origin. So I didn't get into hip hop until, well, I'd say mid 90s. I got into mainly Tupac.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't get into Biggie. It was just Tupac. It wasn't like I liked hip hop. I just liked Tupac. And then
That's
in
what it was
90,
back then. Yeah,
yeah, but then in '98 when I moved to England, first thing I did was bought Moment of Truth, and my life was changed because in between Tupac and Moment of Truth,
yeah,
I had a Glaswegian friend of Pakistani origin who he played me some old school hip hop compilations. So I remember listening to, I think there were probably three songs that knocked me off my feet.
mm-hmm.
There was a particular remix of Talking All That Jazz by Stetsasonic,
Mm-hmm.
the Cold Cut remix of Eric B and Rakim Paid in Full.
Mm-hmm.
But the one that really just up the side of my head never recovered was My Philosophy from Boogie Down Productions,
Yeah,
KRS-One.
yeah,
And for me, I didn't get into hip hop and everything later because being in a setting like Pakistan, I always found that like music can help define you, but it also potentially, when you're not fitting with others, it's a protective armor when you're in antagonistic opposition to others.
mm-hmm.
So the American kids of Pakistani origin, they hated us. So, they were all kind of listening to gangster rap, but they also listening to like long haired metal, a whole heap of shite from the 90s that, has not stood the test of time. And then on my side, it was like, okay, Oasis are going on. Yeah, they're cool. Blur, really cool and quirky. And then what was interesting was that the stepping stones to hip hop for me ended up being the Bristol scene. Like
Bristol was big, man.
the way that I got into Massive
Still
Attack,
is.
those
Still is.
those first two albums,
Yeah,
and then Portishead, all of that.
yeah.
But then even, as I returned back to England, for me, it was always just so surreal, being drawn to this culture, but being far away from, the hubs of it. I don't feel it as much now because I'm in London and I've been surrounded by it for
Yeah, yeah, it's everywhere
a long
now.
time. But again, this is my ADHD rattled brain that's gone off in tangents. But talk to me a bit about Black culture, what it means to you, what you love, and why it means so much for you
Yeah,
to explicitly name it and acknowledge it, as opposed to what some people can often do is to kind of mention all the bits without actually giving the proper attribution.
where it's from. Yeah.
The talk is about all those
Who gave us this? Yeah, 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 for sure. I mean, like, if I'm going way back, like, I remember avidly being obsessed with Kool and the Gang, Michael Jackson and Prince, Smokey Robinson. And I remember, like, it was, and my mum always said to me, she was like, the reason why you like Motown, you like soul, and you've developed into hip hop is because I used to play it around the house all the time when you're a kid. And I remember when I started doing hip hop, and she was like, the reason why you got rhythm is because I used to bounce you around while I was cleaning up to Kool and the Gang, to all the like Prince and Michael Jackson when you were a little baby. And so it's hats off to her for opening those doors to me. I think for me, it was just, it seemed like the anti everything else. So it immediately had my attention. It didn't conform to anything that I'd seen on TV or saw outside. And I remember, it was back then, I think I mentioned, it was so hard to be into hip hop because you had to work for it. You had to like find the people that were getting like the tapes. I remember the first time I heard NWA, I think I was in primary school, and some kid brought in his older brother's like tape recorder or cassette player, sorry, and we were listening to Fuck the Police. You know, at that time we're like 8 or 9, so we're just listening and like swear word, swear word. You know, so it's obviously from that young mind you grabbed our attention, and I think from then it just became something that wasn't easy to get. Like you had to go through someone's older brother had recorded it off of someone else, and they brought it to school. Like we got to secondary school, and it was like, I remember when Snoop Dogg's album came out, and we were all just fiending for it. We just, you know,
Doggy Style.
Yeah, Doggy Style. How are we going to
Okay,
get hold
okay.
of this album? You know,
It's a great album. Talk to me about some of the standout tracks from Snoop Dogg's Doggy Style. I'm not going to put you on the spot and say one track, but for you, standout tracks.
it's everything. It's like Gin and Juice is a massive track. What's My Name is a massive track. It's not even just the single tracks within there. It's just the whole production. It's like the interludes. It's everything. You're not just selling like an idea of one track. It's a whole lifestyle. You're hearing like people at the party playing the tracks, you know, and then, you know.
Do you miss skits in hip hop albums now?
Yeah, I miss a story, but Kendrick kind of brought it back with Good Kid, Mad City.
Yeah, that is a great album. So again,
it's a great album, and he definitely brought back everything that I love. Like he brought back the narrative, and you know how everything kind of ties together. He didn't just give you an album; he like built a world, which is what I appreciate in anything that you know is creative.
And that's what I find really interesting. Like I was playing that album a while ago to a friend of mine who I went to college with in Waterlooville, and you know, we grew up on things like Mos Def, you know, all those sorts of things, Black Star. And I find it fascinating how some people get locked into a time warp and they don't move on. So I was in the car with this friend decades later playing Swimming Pools Drank by Kendrick.
Yeah.
And he's just like, what the fuck is this shit, man? Fuck this, it's crap. And it's like you that album, that song, it's amazing. I mean, you know, Sing About Me, When I'm Dying, The Recipe with Dre.
Money Trees.
Yeah, and again, what's interesting is the thread here is just Dre as a producer.
Yeah, so maybe that's, you know, obviously you got to give Kendrick his props. He's a great MC, but yeah, the kind of guy that's ushering in the new era is Dre. He's like bringing in, you know, he's using the production that we're used to and the kind of, you know, has our hearts and using it to introduce a new artist, and then, you know, just it's passing the torch more than anything. Yeah, like it's going that whole era was, you know, anybody was around for that, and it was just constant gold. It was, you know, new albums were coming out. You just had to save up your money. You had to save up your £15 to go get it.
You know what's crazy is that time it was a lot of money.
Yeah. Oh man.
But
yeah.
at the same time, you did it. Whereas now, if £15 it actually feels worse now in adult life.
Yeah. But they're getting you in other ways, because Spotify's charging you what, like £14 a month.
I pay $9.99 a month.
$9.99, whatever it is.
And I still buy music on vinyl and digital and CD.
Yeah, right. Oh, you're a real one.
I am. Ask certain MCs who are making music, and they'll be like, "Yeah, Haroon bought my single. He bought my EP. He bought my album."
Yeah.
I still believe in it because
yes, that's love right there.
So that's something I want to touch upon, which is someone like Daniel Ek, who's the CEO and co-founder of Spotify. He basically said, look, if artists want to do better, they just need to crank out an album a year. You know, they need to adapt to my medium. And obviously we've seen other things where, because people want to get more streams, because tracks have gotten shorter, 2 minutes, all of that. We'll get to that. Well, I have some thoughts and I will get into them, but I want to hear your thoughts on what Daniel Ek is saying and how someone who isn't actually creating the intellectual property or the art, but who is basically locking people into a platform, is trying to dictate to the artist what they should be doing and how often.
That's that to me is crazy. And I don't know, have you heard that if you listen to People's Party at all, have you heard Mos Def talk about this?
I haven't gotten to that bit. I saw the clip of him talking about telling all his fans to shut the fuck up about the Black Star
It's not,
album.
yeah, that's taken out of context. I mean, like, he's not telling people to shut the
No,
fuck up.
I
He
know
is
he's not.
polite,
Sorry,
but
but basically what he was saying was no one wants the album to come out more than me and Talib Kweli.
yeah, knock
When
it
it's
off.
ready,
Yeah.
it will come. But please stop, just stop hounding me.
Knocking on the kitchen door, asking when it's ready.
Yeah.
I mean, like, this is the thing.
What did Mos Def have to? What did he have to say on it? If you can expand on it and how that
Well, it's
sort of,
mind blowing that someone who owns a streaming platform is saying that an artist has to live, you know, by their schedule and release on their schedule on their platform and have, you know, this much control over their artwork. And the artist, the soul of the labor, will get a fraction of a penny for each stream. Like, a fraction of a penny is it's ridiculous. They're the main reason why people are there in the first instance. So I mean, streaming's great, and you know, it's easy for us to get hold of all the artists that we love and such, but at what cost? You know, he's a part of a penny. Like, I think one thing Mos Def said, who looked at a penny and said this could be broken up? Like, it's some crazy math going on.
Jesus. I need to go watch that interview now.
You need to watch that, because the way he does it, I obviously wouldn't say it like Mos Def. Like, he's obviously got a lot of passion.
Yassine Bey.
Yassine Bey, 100%. And you know, I was very much like, oh, when's the Black Star album coming? Like, really amped for it. But now I understand exactly what he's saying. I'm just like, you know, when it comes, it comes. You know, you can hear, if you subscribe to Luminary, there's the Dave Chappelle podcast. You can hear one of the tracks on there, and if that's something to go by, then no one's going to be disappointed when it drops.
So again, building on this whole argument about the internet, art, you know, who controls things, who gets paid. When it comes to the internet, there seems to be two very pronounced positions that people take.
Mm-hmm.
One is that the internet devalued art.
Mm-hmm.
There's another one that says the internet has created more opportunities than ever for artists and creators. Mm-hmm. Is either one of them true, or, you know, is the truth somewhere in the middle, or what? You know, what is the truth, at least through your lens, like from what you see, or if you don't want to use a word as bold as truth, what's your take on it all?
I feel like if I was going to pick a pathway, if you just gave me two pathways, I'd definitely be going the second. Only because I believe that it's created way more opportunities, and it's raised the game of so many different artists. Like, you know, everybody can contribute to the platform, and everybody can, you know, see what each other's doing and build off of that. I don't think it's the case where you're kind of cutting people out, or, you know, art itself is being, like, if everything's in abundance, I still feel like the best will rise to the top. Like,
and so this is where the definition of the best comes in, which is,
or your favorite. Maybe best is the wrong word there, but
not even the best. But, you know, if you're making stuff, and if it's good, you will get an opportunity to shine. Mm-hmm. But do you think that requires artists and creatives in the 21st century to apply a similar creativity to their business model, or how they monetize their work, as what they do to actually creating the work?
Again, sorry, can you repeat that?
Okay, what I'm saying is that let's take music, for example. Mm-hmm. People will say, okay, can't sell CDs, or can't make money anymore. Mm-hmm. Streaming is definitely a problem. Mm-hmm. Apple, Spotify, and all of that. Do you feel like maybe in the 21st century, it's not enough to just make good art, but to actually apply the creativity that you've used to make the art, and use that same creativity in trying to figure out how to design the vehicle for your work for it to get to people and for people to part with their money.
This is like kind of what we were speaking about earlier with me trying to get I Love Dust attention to the sense like.
Oh, that's why I'm asking, because I think
Yeah, totally. Because if
none
you
of this
like,
is in silos.
yeah, for sure. I mean, like, if anything, it makes people raise their game or look at a broader horizon. So if you know, I'm just a regular designer, like when I present myself to someone I want to sell to or someone I'm trying to get to hire me, I'm going to give them the best idea I can. It may not align to my usual creative, meaning like I wouldn't make a physical message in a bottle for like every client out there, but you see where my head's at and you can see kind of like my ideology as an artist. And I think like for musicians and creatives there, like you're always going to be looking for the next new thing. And I think that the internet's blowing those doors wide open and making people raise their game.
So in a nutshell, what you're saying is that if we borrow the analogy of you putting a message in a bottle to get the attention of I Love Dust, what we're saying is in the same way that other people are giving like these 30 meg PDFs, it's not enough just to be a musician, cut some tracks, put it on a CD and go, hey, here's my CD, or get to my SoundCloud. You've got to find... for example, Chance the Rapper's just bringing a movie out.
Yeah.
Which ties in with, you know, the coloring book and his work and whatnot.
And what did Chance the Rapper do with the with his first mixtape? He did like a video for every track. Like it was something different. Like, and he gave the mixtape was away for free. Like, so in like a kind of scene where everybody's like worried about money and worried about how they're going to sell, you know, and sort of like gimme. He's like, I've done this for free. This is my promotion. This make you invest in me in the future. And, you know, alongside that, here's like, you know, I'm a creative. Here's my visual for all of these tracks.
So I find this really interesting because what it shows is that someone like Chance has probably figured out, I'm going to have an income or revenue stream from somewhere else. That means that rent's paid, light and gas stay on, there's enough food in the fridge that he can make art and he can basically approach the delivery of it differently. And for me, it almost feels like if you want to be a 21st century artist, whatever the art form is that you really, really want to go for, like say Chance, you almost have to give it away. And actually, I was interviewing a writer earlier this week called David Young, who he used to be a script writer for Brookside. You remember that show that existed?
Yeah.
You don't have to remember the scenes.
I remember Jennifer Ellison.
Who?
Jennifer Ellison. She was up there, wasn't she? That was one of my crushes.
Okay,
Oh, you're gonna Google now. Close the podcast down. We're gonna go through images.
All I'm going to say, I know who you're talking about.
Yeah.
That's it. We don't court laws training orders here at Speakeasy with Haroon.
Just take it. Just put an age rating.
We're just about on the right side of.
Told you, man. Troublemaker. Good troublemaker.
Yeah. So this writer, he then went from script writing to novels, and one of the things that he said in the last episode, closing off, he said, "Can you imagine that we live in a world right now where one of the ways, and it seems increasingly, depending, as long as you do it in the right context and it's the right type of work that you're doing, that doing something for free or giving something away is counterintuitively, it actually is the more assured way of making money."
Yeah. It's like assuring people of the product.
Yeah, you reduce the barriers to sort of acceptance.
Yeah.
But once they love it and they can't live without it, then you can find another way to say, all right, the next one I'm going to charge for, or let's do a show and I'm going to have merch. So for example, I didn't even know about this because I've only been discovering Tyler the Creator in the last couple of years.
Yeah.
But did you hear that thing where I think 10 years ago, like will.i.am was approaching him like, yeah, you're never going to make it.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it was discouraging. Like it was like Tyler tweeted about it.
Yeah, yeah.
And obviously, you know, there are a few people who have sold their soul,
Yeah.
um, you know, as badly as what will.i.am has, which is a shame because he's talented. Like, you know, he can dance and play instruments as well,
Yeah, yeah, he's
really
got
well.
the rapping, man. Yeah.
And, you know, Tyler basically said that, look, I guarantee you 10 years from now, I'm going to be earning a living doing what I love. And, you know, people now in hindsight are telling me like, yeah, even like 5-6 years ago, you know, when he came to perform and do little small gigs in London, when they set up the merch table, queues around the block.
Yeah.
So what this goes back to again is like, what's your advice to artists, especially artists and creatives, where they're still stuck in that old world mentality of, I need a label or I need some, you know, almost like, what's the phrase?
An endorsement or
Yeah,
something.
the validation or like this, almost
Yeah,
like this, you know, parental type figure of a label, whatever.
yeah.
And also where they have this mentality where they want to basically sell 1 million.
Mm-hmm.
What's your advice to them, given everything that we've been saying now, which is more about trying to potentially develop, you know, a fan base that just actually absolutely can't live without your work? Like,
Yeah, I mean,
what have you
it's
got to say on all of that to people who are still trying to sort of, I don't know, shake off certain old world, old school thinking?
yeah, I mean, like that's inherent in everything. You're always going to have naysayers, but I think like the bottom line is to always like invest in yourself. Like never give up on what your dreams are. Never like if you love something so much and you are outpouring creativity that's, you know, from that love, it's going to shine through. It's always going to shine through. I mean, it's just like any creative now. Like you look at like the crypto art scene and the NFT scene. It's it, everybody's kind of discovering themselves as a creative and how they can apply themselves and how they can break into this kind of era, and you know, just you know, doing it off their own back. They don't the times for middlemen are kind of like running out, so to speak. You know, labels you know, it's going to be, there's going to be a time where like, you know, people are going to be like, oh, you needed a label. Like, why don't you just do it yourself? Like you promote yourself on Instagram, you promote yourself on you know, all of your social platforms. You've got 1 million followers. Like why would you need a label?
Yeah.
You know, like those 1 million people love you for who you are. Like why do you need a label to tell, you know, to tell them to love you too? It's not, it doesn't match up to where the direction where everything's pointing.
And so you touched upon something that I wanted to get to next, which is, you know, crypto and NFT. And it's, you know, from what I've gleaned on the internet, you've been getting immersed in that space. So
Mm-hmm.
just talk to me. I mean, look, it's 2021. This interview is going to go out a while from now, but
Something else.
no, but you know, recording this on Friday, July the 16th, we are 3 days away from what Boris Johnson, our Prime Minister, labels as Freedom Day in 3 days' time. The pandemic started last year. What was that impact on you personally and professionally?
Okay, so I mean,
And creatively, and then how did you end up, in addition to all the great work you're doing at I Love Dust as the lead designer, how did you get involved in NFTs? And if you can just give us a bit of a crash course, because I am wildly ignorant about this shit.
where do we start? Should I just start like
Talk to me a bit about pandemic, how it affected, and then let's get into your fascination and
right.
why you're involved, and maybe a little primer and crash course for myself, selfishly, but you know, I'll kind of masquerade that it's just for the listeners. But it's for everyone who's listening, including myself.
All right, yeah, for sure. I always fear that question because, like, it's one of those things that makes sense in your head, and then you start saying it out loud, and you're like, "Hold on a sec."
No, when people say it out loud, I can't make sense of it. So my thing is, I trust that you can actually break it down.
I hope so too.
Devoid of like ego and jargon, and just finally demystify it.
I'm sure I can. But let's start. So if we're going back to when the pandemic hit, I remember, it obviously hit hard, and a lot of people, lost work and loved ones, and it's devastation all around. So everybody's sent home. We're working from home. Same for all of our clients, like Nike and Jordan especially, like are trying to kind of work out how they can survive, working remotely. So on the whole, work's dying down for us. And for a job where you're full on and it's 9 till 6:30 every day, sometimes longer, it's it's tough to kind of navigate. But the kind of positives that came out of that were more, I think, for myself, more thinking for myself, more creative ideas for myself. Just thinking, anybody that knows me knows I hate Instagram and trying to like battle the algorithm. So all Instagram is to me sometimes is people just posting, and then a second later it's forgotten because you're on to the next post. So it's people like pouring their heart into work and then not really getting the shine it deserves. I started by, obviously, with we touched on my love of like Black culture and hip hop. I started making these cards, just as a little creative flex for myself. I was making cards of Boys in the Hood, and I was like, did like the packet, how it would look like if it was like an 80s wax pack, and doing each card like they were like an illustrated kind of poster almost. So it'd be scenes from the movie, and something really cool for myself, so I could like flex on illustration, try some new things, and also make it quite quirky and fun for anybody that was out there on my Instagram watching. My friend, who's turned out to be such a good friend to me, is a guy called Rio. You can check him out at this Rio. He's in my DMs. Like,
how is that spelled?
THISREO.
So I would have thought it was RIO. Like,
no, okay. Maybe in the comments we could tag some artists. That'd be cool.
Yeah.
So he's in my DMs. Like, bro, these could be NFTs. And right now, you might as well be speaking Italian to me because I don't know what you're saying. So he breaks it down to me. Like, he's saying like these. The new technology is NFTs, which is a non-fungible token. So
what does that even mean? Non-fungible.
Non-fungible. So the easiest way I've heard it
in this context.
So if you lend me a tenner and I give you 2 5s back, that's fungible because it both equates to the same value.
Yeah.
If I give you a tenner and I say to you, I want exactly that tenner back that's got the same serial code on it, everything, that's non-fungible. So it's something that's like for like, exactly the same. And what that means in terms of crypto art and the blockchain is that you have NFTs, which can be associated to, so it's a non-fungible token, which can be associated to any form of digital medium and even physical forms too. So you could attach it to animation, illustration, memes, screenshots, poetry.
Okay.
And then that is registered on the blockchain. So the NFT is acting as a certificate of authenticity. So
a piece of art. So what you're saying is it's still very much, you make a physical piece of art, but then you actually register that piece of art to something in the blockchain.
I'm speaking solely on digital right now because that's where it is.
How would it work to have a non-fungible token for a poem? Because that's probably a language I'll understand.
So if you create the videos that you do of your poetry, and then you mint that, which is, when they say mint it, it's like a process of placing it on the blockchain. So the blockchain is like a big spreadsheet that documents every owner and every movement of the NFT and the artwork. So if you like went to one of the sites, like I guess one of the top ones is OpenSea, and you uploaded or minted one of your poems on there, that will have an NFT attached to it, which is attached to the blockchain. So any movement, as soon as it gets sold, people asking to buy it or people making offers on it, that's noted on the blockchain. Blockchain cannot be changed at all. It's not like Wikipedia. You can't change it. So you'll always know who the owner is and who it's gone to. Now, the positives of this is, for every time your piece of art is sold or your NFT is sold, there's always 10% in royalties. So if you think about it in like an artist standpoint, so say someone like, if Andy Warhol did his first ever sketch and he sold it to his friend for $25, then Andy Warhol becomes Andy Warhol. His friend takes that illustration or that sketch, sells it for 2 million. Andy Warhol's family don't ever see any of that money, don't ever see anything from that. And it's the same with, most artists from there. But if you're an artist, say like if I put my Boys in the Hood cards up as NFTs, and then in 10 years from now, Basquiat or Andy Warhol or Jeff Koons, that type of level, if that gets sold, if like one of the cards gets sold for 10 million, I'll always see 10%. There's always going to be 10% in every time that NFT.
Are those physical or digital cards?
These are the digital cards. So I'm speaking solely digital.
So this is interesting. So what we're saying is that if you were to create an album as a whole multimedia experience,
yep.
Let's say there were liner notes, there's beautiful artwork, there's uncompressed MP3s, maybe a bunch of, videos to boot with it. You could register that on the blockchain, and then people go into the blockchain searching for great shit. They make a purchase to get a digital copy of that. You actually get a cut in perpetuity, rather than being the guy who sold the first one and goes, fuck, I made $25, but someone else made 20. So in a sense, what we're saying is blockchain it's like one consolidated place where people go and they find really awesome stuff.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's the platforms itself. So you'll be finding these on OpenSea, you'll be finding them on Rarible, you'll be finding them on, say, like Nifty Gateway is the place for, like, artists to come forward.
This looks like it's going to be definitely something I'm going to look into more.
I think definitely it should be something.
But I think I'm going to be bending your ear.
You can totally do that, man. I'm here for you.
No. So this, I can truly finally comprehend why so many people. Actually, no, because it's not so many people. I still think that because this is crypto and it's blockchain, the majority of people are still like, I can't wrap my head around it.
No, they can't wrap their head around not being actually holding something.
Yeah.
But then when you compare it to a world that, what's the blue check mean to you next to your name on Instagram? There are people that hound for that, and all it is a digital asset.
Yeah.
Then you look at a game like Fortnite, and it's like these kids are spending so much money for their representation in the game. So now you've got people spending money and buying artwork for their representation in the world, or in, the digital crypto world. And it's interesting because I want to see so many artists get involved. I want them to know, that it's not, you don't need someone to say you're an artist, you can do it. You just need to start creating.
So this was an interesting conversation I had today with another writer, where she's basically saying to me, oh, I've got some poems. I'm going to, keep submitting them to like the traditional kind of poetry journals, etc., etc. And I get it why people do it,
Mm.
but it really jars with me. Like I've talked, and because I want to self-publish,
Mm.
and so when I look at something like what you're saying with non-fungible tokens and blockchain and crypto, it just feels like this is something that's actually built for me. Because in traditional frameworks, I've talked to people, they say, oh, I didn't publish my first thing for 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
And, but now it's respected because it was from so-and-so. Mm-hmm. And don't get me wrong, when you go and work for certain publishers, you'll get given an editor. They will work on helping you hone your art form. Mm-hmm. But when there is such a plethora of low cost and sometimes free workshops where you can do all of that artistic development mm-hmm. in community, why wouldn't you then take that, run with it, and go for fuck it? I'm going to put this out myself. I don't see why not. So
there's nothing stopping you. Yeah.
Yeah, other than myself.
Yeah, other than yourself. Yeah.
I am the greatest. I am the greatest hurdle. as many people are.
Hey, man, so, every creative is. Just as you're creative with your words, you're creative with blocks and hurdles too.
Oh yeah, and the excuses I tell, the lies I tell myself.
Yeah, it must be even worse for you because you're so good with words.
The way the eloquence with which I practice self-deception is it's a thing of fucking beauty. It really
is. Self-deprecation is just it's to be awed at.
It does, and I've got an excuse. I'm British, so it's just.
Man, yeah, and definitely, exactly what you're saying. You should be out there, and even if you are, like, you like, I've heard people talk about how tickets to festivals could become an NFT. Only because you've got the ticket to go to the festival, but then sometimes that ticket could come along with some artwork. That's made.
It's about making it slightly unique. So, for example, let's say, I don't know, I released a beat because I've started making beats. Mm-hmm. I could put an MP3 of that up on an unfungible, but say each copy will come with a unique written note that could be like a short something, a poem. Mm. It feels like it's about getting creative in the same way that, and again, not everyone's done it well. But Patreon or Patreon, I don't know how to pronounce
it. Yeah.
So there's a lot of people doing it and not making much.
No.
And you could argue that maybe they're not creating great enough incentives for their fans. But have you heard of Amanda Palmer?
I haven't, no.
So she's this artist. She's like a long-time indie artist. She was in a group called the Dresden Dolls, I think. Mm-hmm. And then she was solo artist, and please forgive me if anyone's listening to this. I'm not trying to define a woman by her relationship to a man, especially if my daughter's listening to this, who'll be like, Dad, you failed the Bechdel test.
Oh, you're going to hear it.
I will feel the full force.
Yeah,
just like performing in bikini briefs during the 1980s. You remember the album I'm talking about, Dirty Mind?
Yeah.
Yeah, did not need to see that visual. But anyways. And we'll get to Prince in a minute because I think we bonded over that as kids. But yeah, no, she also, for the longest time, was married to Neil Gaiman. Do you want to guess how many supporters she has on her Patreon who regularly throw money her way every month?
Is she in the 100,000?
Pardon?
100,000?
No, it's 15,000.
Well, okay, all right.
But most people struggle to get 100 people.
Yeah. Hey, it's a grind, man. Yeah.
Think about it. Even if it's $1 a month, and a lot of people are paying more. 15 grand a month. I don't know about you. I think I could just about scrape by on 15,000 a month, and find it within me to at least repay some of my time back when I'm not staring out of the window, picking up things off the floor, or picking my nose like no one's watching.
That's it. Hire a Bugatti for like a couple of weeks. You good?
Yeah, but again, but what she's done is it's not dissimilar to some of the things you were saying about, for example, with the ticket,
Yeah.
with a unique piece of artwork. Some of the higher rewards on Patreon, and again, please, whoever's listening, feel free to at me on Twitter. I don't get fragile about these things. If I'm pronouncing it incorrectly, just drop a voice note or something.
Patreon, right?
I don't know if it's Patreon or Patreon.
I
Patreon.
will
Okay,
call
let's
it
go with Patreon.
Patreon.
But, you know, some of the more expensive sponsorship levels, they basically involve, you know, her making something unique.
That's it. And dude, like, I think the misconception here is that you need to be someone before you're in the space, and you don't.
No, you are
Goes back.
someone.
Yeah, exactly. And it's going back. You invest in yourself. If you're following your dreams and what you love, the real's going to show through. Like, people are going to know that you're about it and know that you're honest and appreciate your artwork.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, if say like there's a kid, I won't put his name out there, but I bought his artwork recently, and he felt some type of way about it because he was like, oh, you know, why are you buying my artwork? Do I owe you something? I'm like, you don't owe me anything, but like, you know, where do you think you're going to be in 10 years? And he's like, well, I don't know. I'm like, no, where do you think you're going to be? Are you going to be one of the elite 3D artists out there? Are you going to be one of the top dogs? And he's like, well, I'd hope so. And I'm like, I agree. So if you make it, we all make it. That's the beauty of it.
No, I think it took me a long time to realize this. So we had this. I don't want to touch on it too much because I don't want to embarrass myself too much early on in the life of this podcast. But like when I was younger, I felt that everything was a zero-sum game. One wins, one loses. Whereas now, and again, a lot of this actually comes from being influenced by an artist like Ty. Rest in peace. He passed from COVID.
Man, yeah.
But he was really big, and he taught me about the fact that no, it's about community. It's about creating platforms. It's about everyone rising together. And that's really changed how I look at it. So, you know, that whole push.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I'm actually starting a little, you know, emerging artist. Well, not starting. I'm participating in some workshops for sort of emerging artists. And, you know, I mean, I've done this in the past, but I actually went onto Instagram and I tagged other fellow writers and poets who I would have looked at them as competition. And I was like, you know what?
Yeah.
I'm not going to look at it and go, they're going to steal my shine. If they can come into the space, they're going to make it even better. And I'm going to benefit. Other people are going to benefit. It's going to be this beautiful flywheel. And yeah, I think it's, like you said, we're in an abundance age now, especially with the internet and stuff. So it's a better mindset to be in. It's a better mindset. We said something, you mentioned about, you know, the greats, and you mentioned like Andy Warhol, Basquiat, and who was the third artist?
Jeff Koons.
All right, so there's three artists that I kind of, because of geography and timeline, I put together. So I'm going to ask a question. I'm going to mention the three artists.
Okay.
You can only keep two of them, and I will also answer, but I'll answer after you. I already know who I'm voting for.
All right.
You know, you've got the work of Keith Haring, Jean-Michel Basquiat, and Andy Warhol. One has to go, and two can stay.
I'm keeping Basquiat and Warhol.
Oof.
I know. What are you doing to me?
Do you want to have a guess as to who I would keep out?
You might keep out Warhol. Yeah.
Go on.
I'd keep, because I'm looking at two kind of, I want to say, loose styles, like Keith Haring and Basquiat. So I feel like that's covered. Even though Keith Haring, like, you know, making me seem like a Keith Haring hater, but I'm absolutely not.
No. This is one of those. This is. I'm probably going to try and incorporate a dickhead question like this in every other podcast interview.
Just a curveball, make them slip up, and then we're going to edit it to make it look like...
No. There's no edits here. This is raw, uncut.
It's raw.
You know, I almost found myself drawing on a Biggie line, if you know the one I'm talking about.
Go ahead.
Never mind. It's, you know, I want younger people to listen to this. Like, lyrics, but
they know Biggie. He's on the t-shirts in Urban Outfitters.
you had to go there, didn't you?
I did. Like, that's the thing. Like, you're going back to how, you know, back in the day, we always listen. You know, Tupac was the guy we listened to, and you know, as great as Biggie was, you know, it was kind of more focused on Tupac. But now it's changed because Biggie is more marketable, like, in the sense, like, you know,
I think I'm going to be controversial. I think Biggie is his technical rhyming skills are way better.
Yeah, but I mean, you know,
and then Tupac was soulful, but he was soulful. You know, he did tunes like
soulful and real, and you know, so much passion behind what he said as well. But yeah, no, you're right, and you can't turn around. Anybody that says that one of those artists was better than the other doesn't know hip hop, because there wouldn't be what we are today without them both.
But they're also approaching it the wrong way.
Oh yeah,
you know, there's again a winner and a loser. There's space for so many.
And the versus era.
Name like 3 hip hop artists that have really, over your entire lifetime, they're ones that you keep coming back to, where you could, you know, you like, you would get into a rut with someone if they said, no, we've got to take that off your hard drive. We've got to take it off.
Okay. Because this changes for me.
Tell me, like, at this moment in time, of course it's going to change. You ask me 2 weeks from now, but on today at 9:35 p.m. July 16th, 2021, 3 days away or 2.5 days away from Freedom Day, 3 artists.
So KRS-One. I love KRS-One. I love De La Soul. I love Nas.
Hey.
That's like 3 go-tos right now. But then also I love Black Star. I love Mos Def. I love that whole raucous era, you know, that early 2000s, like underground from you know, you think of all the artists that were underground right then, like High and Mighty, Apathy, the Demigods.
Shabam Sadiq.
Yeah, oh man. Gee, Shabam Sadiq. Oh, did you ever have that? Do you remember the remix with Down for the Count with Talib Kweli, and Ty was on there? There was a UK release.
It's one of my favorite remixes.
I've got it on vinyl.
I've got it on vinyl.
Yeah, it's
class. I mean, I can't even repeat the lyric, but I used to get to a lot of arguments.
Yeah. Oh man.
No, I got into so many arguments with people growing up, where people are Ty is soft, Ty is this, Ty is that, and then you play the Ty verse on Down for the Count.
Yeah, it's hard.
It's
hard, man. You can't fuck with it.
I mean,
yeah, you can't fuck with it. It's good. Dude, man, I was one of those guys. When Ty first came out, I was like, he ain't what I you know, my ideal of a rapper is. He's too spoken word. It's too kind of, you know, it's too soft. And then it wasn't until, you know, shout out to my ex-girlfriend at the time, but like we used to listen to Awkward, you know, all the time. So I've got so many memories from
Awkward
that album.
and Upwards.
Oh man, god damn.
Wait a minute, or you know, that tune, Groovements.
Yeah. But you know, that first album, damn man, like, he's a bad man. He's a bad man.
Funny thing, do you remember that song Break the Lock?
How'd it go?
He had lines like Mr. Fantastic Fox, the awkward individual, the white-ish hot.
Yeah.
My jazz addiction is I was writing a poem the other night in a workshop.
Yeah.
And I was talking about jumping in the water with both feet.
Yeah.
And it reminded me, and I was like, in the next line, I put a title. I was like, "Splash, little fishy, can you swim in a pond?"
Yeah.
Like his lyrics were.
That's Ty right there.
No, but there was another song like Ghetto Perspective, where he talks about, you know, insured from birth to fail.
Mm.
Judge hammered, Judge hammered the nail and the roof caved in.
Mm.
Such a poet, and
Bars.
it's I still feel that loss.
Mm. I know you. That was kind of what brought us back together again, because I remember as soon as I saw that happen, I was like, shit, oh man, that's heavy, and I just thought, fuck, Haroon. Like I knew, because I knew how close you guys were, and yeah, I think that's when I reached out straight to you, and
No,
we
and
started.
I appreciate it, and it's yeah. I mean, he left an incredible legacy, though. Multiple EPs, 5 albums. Show me a
Yeah.
solo artist who's put 5 great albums out.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
when you think about the fact that the odds were stacked against him, he was from the UK.
Yeah. Legend, man.
To put 5 out,
Yeah.
no one's done that. So yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think
Yeah.
we're getting towards the end. There's one thing I've got to ask again is, you mentioned Boys in the Hood.
Mhm.
So it's obvious that even though you haven't mentioned it, you must like movies as well.
Yeah, for sure.
Any particular directors or any just again how you feel today in this moment? Any particular movies really are like, yeah, I keep coming back to those. They stick in my mind. And just what was it like?
Um,
Are they directors that influence your visual style?
it's not necessarily directors, but it's just movies. Like for some reason, I love a stoner flick.
A what?
Like a stoner movie. I love a stoner movie. Like I love like Kevin Smith movies. Like people hate him, but there's things like, and maybe not it's something.
Snooty Boochies.
Yeah, exactly, man. Like Jay and Silent Bob and things like that. And on the flip, I
The
love
first
Super
Clerks
Bad.
movie.
Hey,
The first Clerks movie. Clerks.
yeah, Clerks was like
How many times
unreal.
when we were growing up were we at a job, a really crappy job? We're like, I'm not even supposed to be here today.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. And when that came out, it reflected exactly what you were going through. You were probably working a shitty job. I know I was.
I was in retail for the longest time.
Exactly. I was working in a corner store. No, ain't the one. Ain't the one. But and that comes out, and you just like, yeah, it just, it's like art imitated life, and it was just done in such a comical way. Like the characters are just so well thought out, and I think like they're so natural because like Kevin Smith is good at bringing like with Jay. He knew Jay from being around locally, and just got him to be himself, like obviously an amped up version of himself in the movies, and it shines through. Like it's a natural progression of from streets to the stage.
Okay, brilliant. Look, a final note. What do you want to tell other people out there who are listening, who are probably on a creative path like you and me? How, what advice would you give them?
Invest in yourself, bet on your friends.
Okay. And I remember in the run up to us talking, you actually used this exact phrase in an email to me.
Mhm.
Invest in yourself again.
Mhm.
Bet on your friends. Can you elaborate on that more?
Well, exactly like kind of how I was speaking about, the kid that I bought his artwork. It's like and when you spoke about talking to other writers, you kind of saw them initially as competition, when the idea is that you've got to kind of see them as, well, they are collaborators.
Mhm.
Like everybody's in the same struggle as you, same mental hurdles, same blocks. So just making sure that you kind of like communicate with those guys, and if you like their artwork, buy their artwork. Support each other. It's like currently with everything that's going NFT wise and crypto art wise, it's a community building each other up, and establishing each other. Like it's not crabs in a bucket. It's people helping everybody up, and kind of making them realize that you don't need to be on a platform. You are your own platform.
And you know what? That is a wonderful note and sentiment to end this all on. Look, Tom, it's been this has been a lovely episode simply because I've gotten to I myself, as someone who's known you on for 20 years, I've gotten to know you a lot better. And I think, we talk about betting on your friends. I think my outcome out of this is I'm definitely going to be betting on you.
You too, man. We're going to talk NFTs, and I'm going to talk how you get this poetry out there, and sort of
and the beats as I get more time crafting beats and stuff. So we'll do that. I mean, there's a whole heap of things I'm working on.
Let's chop it up.
I'm very. It's interesting because we'll wrap it up in a second. But you talked about focusing on one thing, and I have such severe ADHD that my natural kind of mode of operating is doing multiple things in parallel and being kind of a little bit more multi-pronged. But I think, everyone's got to find the thing that works for them. You asked me to read one book at a time. There's a very good chance I won't finish that book and I won't read anything. Let me go read 6 at a time. And, by mid-July, I've read 14 books.
Yeah. Wow.
Just, what, the neurodiverse, and hopefully I'll really get a chance to talk about it on this podcast, actually.
Yeah, for sure. It'd be interesting to hear
more
about.
People who are neurodiverse, ADHD, autistic, because I want to talk about my stuff, but I want to do it through the lens of getting other guests on and how they sort of navigated that. But we'll get there.
Cool.
We'll get there. But look, thank you again for your time. It has. It's mad. I'm so wiped out because I've got long COVID and chronic fatigue, and I almost flaked. I almost didn't want to do the interview. I was so tired.
Oh wow. Oh man, dude, I appreciate it. Like, this is the first time I've ever done anything like this. I'm totally here for you, and I want your podcast to blow up, and I want you to realize all the things are achievable. And I really appreciate you, and I appreciate this opportunity, and it's been great.
All right, well look, all I can do now is again thank you. Just wish you a great weekend, and I think that we're going to have you back on again on a subsequent season. I still think there's a lot to talk about creativity, and who knows where the NFT space will have gone. But for now, for the umpteenth time, a bit like, Michael Jackson and the Jackson 5, never can see. Let's end it now, man. Thanks, all right?
Thank you, bro.